The energy is giving, like, even on a subconscious level, the collective no longer being afraid of change in any way. Like, it's getting to the point where, hold on, some of you literally could have had a moment where you were like speaking to the universe or whatever, or your higher self, and you're just like, I honestly don't care what has to be rearranged or what I have to give up. I just like need this reality or this part of my life to be over. Like, I'm willing to do whatever, I'm willing to sacrifice anything. And like, I'm getting that. Okay, so some of you could have already gone through seasons where, you know, a lot of people have gone through times where they didn't have anything. Like, you maybe were even homeless for a time, or didn't have a car, or and you had nobody, right? You've already gone through that. You've endured that. You're not ever going back to that level. It's just giving that there are certain like there's certain like obligations that you've given yourself or something, or like, I feel like for a time you were taking a lot of responsibility for certain individuals' happiness, and that could have been like your parents or siblings, or like, it's just giving like invisible chains, you know. Obviously, you know, hold on. And I'm also getting that a lot of exposure is coming out in regards to things that you thought were your responsibility but actually weren't. Like, things that were, I don't know. Like, okay, and this is just an example, okay? Because I'm getting really oddly specific stuff that's like making me tear up, and I don't want to like trigger anybody, so I'm just using the example, okay? And then like, so the example is, say that all of your life you were told, you know, you have to work to survive. Like, maybe your parents are like, we don't have any money for you to even, I don't know, go to Build-A-Bear workshop. We can't get you lessons in anything. You just have to stay home, do your homework like you're supposed to, get a job, you know, or like, you know, go to college and then pay us back for college, and then get a job, and then get a good enough paying job so you could take care of us, blah blah blah, okay? And then it's giving like, you end up finding out that that whole time you that's not even like, those aren't even your real parents. And then you find out not only are those not your real parents, is that like you have a trust fund somewhere, you know. And I don't know if this is literal, right? I know some people say it like, but whatever, it could be, I don't know, but it's just an example, right? And like, you find out that you had a trust fund that was supposed to be available to you as soon as you graduated high school, right? And you know, and so all this time, you know, people, maybe they were projecting like, oh, you're a failure because you didn't do this what we told you, or whatever, blah blah blah. But it's something in your spirit knew that you were never meant to do any of those things, and you never had to, because you know what I mean? It's something like that. So it's just giving that like, and I keep getting this message, I cannot escape it, that somebody's like kid is not, like, somebody's just like DNA test, please, okay? But it's like something that was projected upon you, that was a responsibility that you were under the impression was like chaining you to a situation, okay? And it could even just be invisible chains of like guilt and shame, or someone like, oh, well, you were doing this for so long, how are you just gonna stop doing this, or whatever. Or even stuff like, uh I don't know, it's giving too. So say, hold on, like, I don't know, it's just an example too. Like, say if you were in a relationship with somebody who treated you like absolute shit, right? But maybe they were like covering most of the bills in the shared place that you lived in, or something like that. And then so, you know, you're kind of like, maybe you come up and then you start making more money, and then you're like able to theoretically like elevate the situation, okay, where you guys would be able to, if you stayed together, would be able to move into a bigger place, or like, you know, you would be able to help them in some way, because technically they were helping you for some time. And so like, there's like that weird sense of like, oh well, they were doing this for all this time, which means that like, now that I'm able to do this, I have to stay and help them. Like, no, 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 you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. And you have to understand that like, people are going to talk shit and say anything about your decisions, whether you stay or whether you leave, okay? And there is no right or wrong thing, as long as you're not literally like hurting somebody physically, okay? You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're not interfering with someone's right to like live, okay, and you're not like blackmailing somebody or intentionally sabotaging someone's life, you're allowed to choose yourself at any time. Okay? And I'm not talking about abandoning your children if that's your real blood child, okay? I'm just talking about like I feel like there's just a sense of like people putting a lot of responsibility and duty onto you because you know what I mean? It's the sense of like, oh, you grew up being the child who was kind of like even accidentally neglected because you were the good child, right? And so you were praised for being good, not for being yourself. And you know what I mean? Like you could have been like the sibling who your parents would always like praise you for being so good and obedient, and like they would even like chalk shit about your siblings to you, and yet they treated your siblings way better than you. You know what I mean? It's like some weird shit like that. But I think that, collectively like breaking out of that, because I just keep getting this sense of like shrugging and it just being kind of irrelevant, and understanding that there are a lot of sort of, I don't know, mental constraints that have been projected upon you or even people at large in order to trick us into feeling like we have to maintain systems that are collapsing at the seams anyway or whatever. And I think that you've gained enough clarity and awareness, and there's a sense of like inner certainty. And I know not everybody is like spiritual to that degree, but it is giving that your ancestors are like a spiritual being is like, I almost see it as like them having a hand on your back and like pushing you. And I think that they pushed you through the point of your own mental resistance, to the point where you're on board now and you're just like, yeah, you know what? F all of this and like let's go. You know what I mean? Like you're no longer, why is hold on. Like there's all these things that I think you used to fear or be afraid to do for some reason that were based on like not real fears, okay? It's sort of like they were the fears based on pessimistic and worst case scenarios, when I'm trying to tell you, like, if you're seeing this message, you are on the timeline where, I don't know, regardless of how absurd it is or unrealistic it is, you're on like the utopian timeline or whatever, where yes, regardless of any situation that may happen to you or thing that you encounter, the best case scenario will happen in every situation, okay? Even if that's like, like a lot of it may not seem that way in this moment, especially but a lot of things are being exposed, okay? So if you're finding out that people were lying to you, I keep getting this, like, especially if you find out that somebody was lying to you about a child being yours, okay, or like you being somebody's child, and that was like a lie, that seems like, oh my god, this is terrible. But you have to understand that that's like a liberating thing, because you don't want to live your life like under the veil of a lie and deception. So it's good that it's being liberated, so that's still like for the best, even if it is painful, okay? And it's almost like, and it's kind of weird to say, but say that even like you got cheated on, okay? And you're like, this is terrible, right? But this is weird to say. Like, say the universe knows that person's destiny or whatever, and they know that like they are not going to accomplish anything. They know that like even if they were loyal to you, they would still be like you still deserve better regardless, they would never like give you the love. Like there's something about like you are actually going to be able to experience like the fairy tale like whatever your vision of like the ideal romantic scenario is in your mind and spirit or whatever. Like that's actually going to happen for you, like regardless of how unrealistic people have tried to make it seem. It doesn't really matter what it is, okay? And not in a superficial way. I just mean, whatever is the materialization of beyond your wildest dreams, like that is happening for you. So I'm getting that you may even gain the perspective of like, you know what, this is kind of silly. I guess it's not that serious to say, but it's almost giving that like, you could like someone could like cheat on you, okay, and like you could mourn that relationship and like move on a little bit and like start to heal, and then you're like, wait, that person was actually like chopped, and like I'm like, you know what I mean, and you gain the perspective that you didn't really have any